Georgia, Alabama. We kind of knew we were going to land right here for the national championship game. We got Savannah Lee Richardson on the line from Dawn of the Dog. Please check out her work right there, right on the banner. Savannah, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I'm excited for Monday. This week has been going by way too fast, but it's kind of glad because the month of December drug on after the SEC championship game.
I bet. So, where do we start? We can start with the Kirby Nick Saban matchup.
Okay.
You know what that's all about. Can Kirby figure him out? Does Nick Saban have a hold on Georgia? All those things that we expected to see turned over in the SEC championship game. And of course, it wasn't the best of, and I think it's for anybody who follows college football, knows college football, it's ridiculous to say based on that result that Alabama's 17 points better than Georgia. Because if you look at the other games throughout both schedules, it doesn't add up. Alabama played a great game, especially a great second quarter. That's what it turned out to be. What's your take on the kind of the psychological warfare?
Well, I just think that Alabama has a chokehold on Georgia, and they have for the past 7 straight games, and it's just been one thing after another. Tua coming in 2018 to win that national championship game, and it's just something that Georgia hasn't quite gotten over. And I think in the SEC championship game this year is they got away from being themselves, and they got away from what worked and doing everything that they did all season long. And I don't know why Kirby decided to go away from any of that. That boggled my mind because it didn't even look like the same team. It's just like, okay, well, it's the SEC championship game and it's Alabama. Everybody else thought Georgia was going to show up and hang 50 on them, and instead Alabama almost hung 50 on Georgia. So I think there is a little bit of psychological warfare going on. Nick Saban loves to talk about rat poison, but when you really break it down, I think he is Georgia's biggest rat poison. If they can just kind of silence him and silence everything that he's saying and quit believing that they are the best team and they are dominant and everything and play with a chip on their shoulder like they did against Michigan, it's going to be a lot better ball game. I think Kirby does have a slight advantage that we're playing him in the same season because of what he did with Auburn back in 2017, that year. But we will see. I really hope Georgia gives them a better ball game than they did, and I hope that they play within themselves because that's going to be the biggest key is if Georgia doesn't try to be anybody else and they just try to be themselves. And as cliche as that sounds, that's exactly what Georgia needs to do. But there is something there, and it's in my opinion, it's time for him to buckle up and just kind of quit thinking about it and just be the coach that he knows that he can be.
Was there anything in the Michigan game that made you think, okay, this team got past Alabama and they got their mojo back? Was it more that you thought Georgia got back to what it was doing all season, or that they were that much better than Michigan, which obviously they were to a certain extent, but what are your biggest takeaways?
I think Georgia had a better game plan than Michigan. I don't think Michigan quite expected Brock Bowers and Stetson Bennett and that whole lot of receivers and everybody to kind of come out and smack them in the mouth, but they kind of did. And the whole Kenny McIntosh touchdown pass to A.D. Mitchell, that was really, really creative from Todd Monken and something that he hasn't really done all season. And so that was really exciting to see. But I think Georgia just kind of regrouped and refocused. It wasn't necessarily that they did too much else, but instead of coming out and playing on their heels like they did against Alabama, they kind of punched first instead of getting punched in the mouth. But no, I just think Georgia was the better team against Michigan, and I don't think Michigan was quite ready to expect that. I think they thought the team that was in the SEC championship game was going to show up, and the way that Georgia and the team just kind of carried themselves moving into it, they were laser focused and ready to prove that one game doesn't define their season. And but I mean, to me, defensively, they put pressure on the quarterback. That was the biggest takeaway, is they were able to put pressure on Michigan's quarterback, who has the best offensive line in the country, according to the award winners or selectors or whatever. And so I think Kirby made it a point to get some revenge for Dan Lanning not getting the Broyles Award and for his offensive line not getting more credit than they did.
Got Savannah Lee Richardson on the line from Dawn of the Dog. Please check out her work right there. Get yourself all settled for Alabama and Georgia on Monday night. And so, yeah, when we look at probably the most maligned good player I've ever come across, my goodness, and the two of us got involved in a tweet this week from some knucklehead somewhere. It's just amazing to me because sure, I try to be fair and evaluate and look at the good and the bad and certainly take Georgia football very from a neutral standpoint. I don't have any stake in the game. And Stetson Bennett to me, and I would have said the same thing at this point last year, is a top 20 or 25 quarterback in college football. I'm not trying to make him out to be Vince Young or Michael Vick, but he's really good. He's athletic. He can make just about all the throws. Does he have like a top arm in the country? Again, no, but he's got as good an arm or better than most quarterbacks in the country. Yeah, he's had a couple games where he's made about 2 or 3 mistakes that's really cost him, and that's pretty much been his downfall, which he cleaned up against Michigan. So your take on Stetson Bennett?
I think Stetson has outworked anybody that's gotten in his way this year, and he's proven everybody wrong. I was really impressed with what he did against Michigan. He silenced everybody out for a whole entire month. I heard about how terrible he was. He wasn't good enough. He couldn't win a playoff game, and there were so many Georgia fans writing the Dogs off. And honestly, there were some people wanting them to lose because JT Daniels wasn't playing. There's a reason Kirby Smart and Todd Monken play Stetson Bennett, and it's because he's gritty. He's going to sacrifice his body every single play, and he loves the University of Georgia. Not that JT doesn't, but he does give the Dogs the best chance to win. His legs do give him a deciding factor that JT just can't quite do. And I don't understand why so many people just don't like him. Okay, he had bad games against Alabama. Well, not every single quarterback is perfect, and he gets a big chance to redeem himself on Monday. But that young man took Michigan to the woodshed. He did everything that he needed to do. Yeah, he had like a couple of questionable throws that they called Stetsoning or whatever the broadcast team did, but that's kind of what you expect out of him. His head coach from high school is the Brunswick High head coach down where I live, and I talk to Coach Pender all the time about Stetson and his tendencies, and he's like, you better hold your breath because until he gets a few completions under his belt, like an interception can't happen. And he's been saying that since he was in high school. And I don't know why so many people have put him on this pedestal of perfection when no quarterback is perfect. And I get that explosive quarterbacks have won the last few national championships and Alabama evolved. So why isn't Georgia evolving? And well, Stetson is what's Georgia's best option right now until Brock Vandagriff and the rest of them kind of get up to speed. But he put that team on his back against Michigan and did everything he was supposed to do. He threw more than 20 times and won a ball game, so they can't keep arguing with that. But I'm really proud of him. He has a flip phone. He doesn't care about social media. When he says he doesn't, he really doesn't. And so I just think it's fun to see him doing his thing and really succeeding. He is not even remotely close to the same quarterback he was last year. And to be in the top 4 in passing efficiency, I believe it is, and top 4 in quarterback rating, like that should tell you everything anybody needs to know about him. I'm a big Stetson fan, but I'm also a big person of whoever's going to give the Dogs the best chance to win. And right now it's Stetson. So I hope he proves everybody wrong.
I would be curious to know what people's perceptions would be if you simply put the 5-star label on him and the 3-star on JT Daniels, because I think that has so much to do with it that people go into the thought process knowing, okay, 3-star walk on. Okay, this is what I'm expecting. Oh, he made a mistake. Yeah, that's because he's a 3-star. Or he didn't make this NFL throw over here. Yeah, that's because he's a 3-star.
Yeah, it's if the people that still, sit around and just talk about the star ratings and stuff have no idea at all. Like Jordan Davis was a 3-star, and look at him now. He's probably going to be a top 10 first-round draft pick. And so it's just like the whole Caleb Williams situation too. Is they all want Caleb Williams, and I'm just like, you have 5-star Brock Vandagriff and could have been 5-star Gunnar Stockton, who just rewrote the Georgia passing record. So it's just like they see something shiny and has a 5-star beside it, and they all jump for joy. But Stetson's gritty. Stetson is what you want at a quarterback like this when you have a defense that is as dominant as Georgia has. And they Alabama games, but it was just as much the defense's fault as it was the offense. So lay off Stetson and let him do his thing.
Savannah, since you brought up Caleb Williams, I got to say, as soon as that news broke, my first thought was Georgia would have been the last place in the country I would have thought of. But, I'm going USC first and foremost because of his obvious ties to Lincoln Riley. And then I'm going with some other fairly top level programs that have quarterback issues. And then I kept hearing Georgia. And I'm like, what? Why Georgia? And there's NIL rumors out there. But besides that, my goodness, I know that you don't know anything for sure until decisions are made known after the game about the NFL draft. But all these quarterbacks most likely are going to, they may transfer, but they're going to stay in college. There's nobody that's definitely going to the NFL, right?
Not to my knowledge. I think if JT had a whole year under his belt, he could
Yeah.
be somebody for sure. But it would be kind of silly for him to transfer again and possibly have. Yeah, I'm not necessarily 100% sure how that whole process works anymore. Because used to, you transfer and you get immediate eligibility, then you're good. But can he transfer again and get immediate eligibility? I don't know. The
Not
only
supposed to.
quarterback. Yeah, so it would be kind of silly for him to transfer out. Stetson does have a year of eligibility with the COVID situation, but I mean, as the fans treat him, who knows? If he wins it all, dude, go enjoy yourself. Like you did your work. I think Carson Beck would be the only person out of all that whole quarterback room that could go somewhere else. But the whole Caleb Williams thing was kind of interesting to me because I'm in the same page as you. Like Georgia doesn't need him. Georgia has a 5-star quarterback sitting in the quarterback room running scout team right now, and Brock Vandagriff, and he's just as good, if not better, than Caleb. And the interesting thing is, Brock was committed to Oklahoma and came back home to Georgia, and that's when Caleb's relationship with Georgia kind of flipped to Oklahoma, and that's why he chose them. So while Caleb would have given a lot of proven experience from running the Oklahoma offense this season, I think Georgia's going to be okay. The Georgia fans need to realize, like, Kirby and Todd Monken have something going on, and they're showing Brock every step of the way what he needs to do, and him and Gunnar are going to be battling it out. And if JT does stick around, like, he's just waiting for his turn at this point. And so many people are like, well, it was this year. No, it didn't have to be. Like, people forget he still had 2 years of eligibility left, 3 if you want to, almost take this one as a year too. So it's going to be interesting to see the offseason, but I think there's going to be a big quarterback battle in the spring. And if JT sticks around, he should be the guy because of his, veteran status. And he's been there, done that.
Savannah, you brought up the other Brock a few minutes ago. So, he tore up Michigan, as we expected. They had matchup issues. And with all the things that went wrong against Alabama, it wasn't him, that's for sure. They had matchup issues as well. So this guy, I'm not going to say that I predicted him to have this incredible freshman year, but I was a bit surprised how much he was disregarded going into the season, because I had heard about how good he was and looked at the ratings and looked at his tape and that sort of thing. So yeah, his legend early in his career continues to grow.
Yeah, he broke Terrence Edwards' touchdown record for a single season with his touchdown catch against Michigan, and so he's breaking records left and right. And I think a lot of people kind of disregard what some of the California kids bring to the table, but that kid has the moxie and the attitude, and he runs around like he's a senior and he should be going to the NFL. And there's some guys that think that he would be able to hang in the NFL now. And after, what he did against Alabama, I would have to say so. He does still have some freshman tendencies. He did that last interception, or one of the 2 interceptions against Alabama. He stopped running his route and the defender was right there behind him. So that kind of was a little bit his fault, but Stetson should have placed the ball a little bit better too. But Brock Bowers is a force. And he has stepped up in the biggest way when Darnell Washington went down with his ankle injury. And I think so many people thought Darnell would be back quicker than he was, and he just wasn't. And so Brock kept running with it. And that kid, I'm excited. I'm so happy he's a true freshman, and Georgia gets to keep him around for at least 2 more seasons if he decides to go as a junior. But I think he didn't get enough credit from a lot of people, even throughout the season. And the John Mackey Award just flat out refused to put him in the finalist, and he had better stats, I think, better than the 2 of the 3 finalists. And so I just think it was kind of disrespectful. And then he did what he did against Alabama in the SEC championship. But he's going to be somebody that I'm pretty sure Alabama's going to figure out who to put on him. So Georgia's going to have to spread it out a little bit more, but get him his looks where he needs to, because even downfield, the kid's a hybrid. I mean, everybody wants to be like, he's a tight end, he's not a receiver. But I'm like, he can do anything a receiver can do as well. So that kid's he keeps surprising me, week after week. And I think he's a little over 200 yards away from breaking Terrence Edwards' single season passing record. So it's going to be a fun game to see how he plays.
So let's talk defense. So if you take the Michigan game and put it together with the rest of the season, that's the Georgia defense. Dominant, best defense in the country by far, not even close. Then you take the Alabama game, and it's easy for anyone to say, okay, well, Georgia didn't play any good offenses. I don't agree with that. Maybe they didn't play one of the three best offenses in the country, but again, very few teams do because there's just not enough games played across the country. No, they didn't play Ohio State, or I don't even know how many explosive offenses there are out there that they didn't play. Anyway, point being, some people might excuse it away as well. They didn't play a good offense. Then they finally played Alabama. But again, all you have to do is compare scores and what happened with other teams, whether you're talking Kentucky, Auburn, with other games, and put it all together. And in the Alabama game, sure, they played by, there's no question, the most talented offense that they're going to play this season in that game. But it also just doesn't add up in terms of their performance.
Yeah, no, that's still I still don't even have an answer to what happened. It's just they honestly, all the players were just like, we didn't play ourselves, and I think they kind of started getting a little too confident all season long. Kirby said all of them were like, we're not quite where we want to be. We're not quite where we want to be. We can be better. And then all of a sudden we feel confident for the Alabama game and with this and this. And so I think they seeped in, that rat poison seeped in just a little bit for the SEC championship. But they redeemed themselves against Michigan and proved it to everybody. And something that really stands out to me is they have 223 quarterback hurries on the year. And if you want to compare that to Alabama, they had 45 the last time I checked. Yeah. So when Georgia puts pressure on quarterbacks, they get the job done. And that's something that I'll have to give Alabama's offensive line credit for. But they got a couple of guys that are banged up and hurt from the Cincinnati game. So it'll be really interesting to see how Dan Lanning changes his game plan from, early on in December to now, because when Georgia puts pressure on the quarterback, it's on. And another thing that they need to, kind of remember to do is not to leave their secondary hanging, because if, that is the biggest weakness, and Alabama exposed it. And we all thought Michigan was going to be able to do whatever they wanted to against them. And I think Michigan had two passes tops over 30 yards, if I'm remembering correctly. Don't hold me too tight there, but they didn't. They stood up and did their job too. But with Chris Smith being able to come back after getting ejected in the first half of the Michigan game, it's really big, because he gives another level of depth that Georgia just really doesn't have there. Next year, Georgia's secondary is going to be something really special to look out for, just because they will have the depth. But that's just going to be the glaring weakness if the front seven can kind of, cause enough pressure but not leave their entire back end of the defense hanging too. So that was the biggest glaring thing in the SEC championship, is their lack of pressure and them kind of leaving the secondary hanging. But other than that, this defense has just got to be themselves. And as I know I've said it like twice or three times now, and it's cliche, but Georgia has a defensive unit that can dominate and bully opponents, and they've done it all year long. And I don't care if, Auburn finished what they did, or Arkansas did, or whatever. Like, those offenses were coming in red hot, and Georgia shut them down. And if Georgia can come out and punch Alabama in the mouth, which they did, that was another thing that I'd probably bring up. Alabama had 9 explosive plays, if you're considering passes over 15 yards, I believe, and runs over 16, something like. Anyway, you know what an explosive play is. They had 9 in the second quarter alone. You take away that second quarter, they had 3 total. So when Georgia was kind of getting pressure or whatever, like it was a lot more efficient on defense than it was in that second quarter. And they just can't let that happen. It'd be a different ball game if that quarter didn't happen. And so many people are like, yeah, well, it did. And I'm like, but if you break it down, you take away those 9 explosive plays, Georgia and Alabama both finished with 12 each. And Georgia did like 2 or 3 each quarter. They were consistent. It was just that terrible defensive second quarter that killed them. But I have a feeling Kirby and them are just going to be kind of hard on them and harping on, this is where you leave your legacy. And you don't want that SEC championship game to be the glaring weakness in this season. And so it's your time to either step up and prove you're the best defense since that 2011 Alabama won, or Alabama's going to get you again. So it'll be interesting. Kind of a ramble there, but.
No, you're good. So, Savannah, the first thing that you said was that you're excited. I'm going to guess that it's excitement mixed with a little nerves.
It is. I mean, Alabama always brings that kind of unsettling stomach feeling as a Georgia fan, because you just don't know. Georgia's done what they've done all year. So what makes Alabama so different? And it's not like Alabama did this to teams all year long like they did a year ago. So it's just, it's a lot of mental, I think. And if Georgia can find a way to kind of focus, put the blinders on, like, who cares? You're in a national championship, but you need to treat it like it's another game, like you've done all year long. Don't care who's Alabama. Don't you just play your ball game, and they should be okay. I mean, the stats say what they do. It's frustrating because it is Alabama, and it's been 7 straight games of either falling short or just getting blown out. And it's time for Georgia to leave a legacy. Nolan Smith said yesterday in his press conference, like, that's what the defense wants to do. They want a legacy. They want to end that drought. And it was just like, that's what kind of team they have this year. And no disregard to the 2017 one or anything like that, but this group has the only biggest difference is the run game. But other than that, it's time to put up or shut up. And while I'm nervous, I also feel pretty excited because it is, a second game in the same season, and Georgia's able to kind of know what they're going to do. And it's that Alabama didn't have that much time to change their game plan. So we'll see.
Savannah Lee Richardson, Donna the Dog. Savannah, we always appreciate you stopping by, and I'm probably won't talk to you before the game. So good luck, and I hope you're able to enjoy it.
Oh, see, I've gotten to the point now where while I am nervous, I thankfully have learned to just kind of sit back and just watch it as the football game that it is. And yeah, I'll yell at the TV and stuff, but I write throughout the game now, and I have to, be a professional about it. And so I've kind of learned to just kind of bottle that emotion until afterwards, so you get all the work done, and then you can kind of hash it out and figure it out. Because my grandfather's a former football coach, and so he'll sit there and talk to me all night about it. So we're good throughout the game. It's either going to be really exciting finish, and we're going to all be burning the city or the whole state down again because, it's 41 years, or we're all going to run our way to Athens with our tails between our legs. So there's no in between.
No, there's not. No, there's not. It's going to be just the most unbelievable high, incredible high, exhilaration, or it's going to be crushing. There's no way around it.
Yep.
All right, Savannah, we appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.